Oh, help everyone. I'm terrible with technology. I've just been setting up my my camera and my microphone. This should work, but like, you know me, everything kind of goes wrong when I try and do something. But on this live stream, I wanted to look at being rich. Oh, you? Because I was doing a live stream earlier on. Someone came on and said about the price of silver. Do we think it's going to go over $50? And I suppose the only reason you want to know that is that you want it to be rich. Like, does everyone want to be rich? Who wants to be rich? Who wants to be rich? Because I want to be. I want to guard. I found my treasure, and I want to guard it. You know. I just wondered who else wants to be rich. Rich. Okay, cool. It's working. My audio's working. Hooray! Hooray! What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world? You know, you could. Who are the richest men in the world? Or there is probably a richest man in the world. Who is the richest man in the world? Does anybody know? Some people say it could be Rothschilds. It could be the royal family of England. It could be some Saudi sheikh who's got loads of oil. Or it could be someone who plays the stock market. It could be. It's not Bill Gates, but he's pretty rich. And then it's like, you know, where you live, who's the one with all the money in your local area? Is that what being rich is? Is being rich having lots and lots of money? Because, like, I find it intriguing that like somebody came into the chat and they said that they wondered if does everyone think silver is going to go over $50? Should we be investing in silver? Is what he wanted to know. So I kind of replied that I was very interested in silver, particularly 30 pieces of silver. That's what I'm really interested in, 30 pieces of silver. And I think that 30 pieces of silver would make me very, very rich. I really do. I'm investing heavily in silver. What about you guys? Are you investing in silver? What is it that is occupying our minds and making us feel rich? What are the things that make us feel rich? Is it because you know, we're increased in goods and have need of nothing? You know, are we increased in goods and we don't need anything because we've got so many goods? You know, we got so many clothes. You know, do we walk past a shop and we want to buy all the things in that shop? Do people, you know, like shopping mall culture? You know, when I was a kid, there were no shopping malls. It was like department stores. But then the shopping mall culture came across from America, and it was like every Saturday, kids used to go walking around a shopping mall, and you would just spend your Saturday buying things. It was like, you know, then I progressed. I used to be a comic nerd when I was a teenager, and then I became a record nerd, and I used to go buying records, and every Saturday was like a record shopping trip, and I'd buy those records that I wanted on the Saturday because they sounded good. With, you know, I was listening to the records, they sounded good, I wanted to own them, and I bought them. I spent my money on them. But the problem was that, like, I wanted more the next week, so every weekend became buying. I was buying every weekend. But you know, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and in his joy he went and sold all he had and bought that field. What does that mean? Kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. When he found one very precious pearl, he went away and sold all he had and bought it. Let's say there's a pearl in a field, and we can't claim that pearl unless we buy the field, but the field costs 5 gold coins. You found the pearl in the field, but the field costs 5 gold coins. So let's say those 5 gold coins are all you have. Do you want to sell your 5 gold coins to buy the pearl? And like, you will be incredibly rich. Like, this pearl is like the most expensive pearl in the world. You would be rich beyond your wildest dreams if you could buy that pearl. But it's only going to cost you 5 gold coins, but that's all you've got. And a lot of people, they might not want to buy that pearl with those 5 gold coins. They might want to spend those 5 gold coins on something else, like in the mall. You might want to go to the mall, and you might want to use one of those coins to buy a new robe. You might want to buy a horse. You might want to buy some slaves to do some chores around your house. And so, even if those people could find that pearl, they might be spending their money on some other things, you know, increasing in something else. Like they might want to collect some jewelry. I'll spend some money on some jewelry, and those 5 coins are kind of, you know, are people going to spend to buy that field? You know, why should they buy that field? Why should they buy that field with their 5 coins? So, you know, if we look again at what it says here, kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and in his joy he went and sold all he had and bought that field. This parable isn't explained. There isn't an exegesis of the parable. We just get the physical parable, which these 2 parables that are next to each other are basically the same. The kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. He found one very precious pearl. He went away and sold all he had and bought it. So, with the title of the video being called Being Rich or Becoming Rich, this idea of treasure and selling something to buy treasure in the parable is to do with your sense. let's just get straight to the point. Your sense is represented by the 5 gold coins. That's why there's 5. I've put it here. It doesn't say that in the Bible, but in another source it says 5 coins. But I know for a fact that this is talking about the sense. And if you sell your sense to buy your soul, which is the field, then you will possess God, because the treasure, i.e. the pearl, was in the field. So, like your soul is eternal, and so you're basically buying immortality, because the body is transient. We all know that we're wearing garments of flesh, and these 5 senses are driving the flesh. So you have like a good and a bad use of sense. Like, we have a good use of sense is we need to see with our eyes to avoid any kind of danger. You know, we don't want to fall down the stairs. We don't want to get run over by a car. We don't want to, bump into people, etc. So that's a good use of sense. And hearing is a good thing to hear things. We can hear languages, and we can learn, can't we? We can become more wise from hearing. And taste, obviously, we need to be able to desire food so that we can keep physically living, and so on. So we can see that the sense is good. And so if you were to appropriate that in the parable in this way, it might not make much sense, because you can say, how can I sell my sense in order to buy the pearl? You know, how can I sell my coins to buy the pearl and repossess my soul? And so the answer lies somewhere pertaining to superfluity, which is excess. So it's the excesses of sense is where the explanation lies. Superfluity. So what would be a superfluous use of sense? It would be something wherein the sense is being abused, or the sense is being overloaded, and then it becomes a desire, an evil desire. It can be called lust. It can be called desiring something that is going to cause sin, which we all know is the transgression of the law. Okay, so there was another parable I like to come up with, which is a tethered goat. So if you have a goat in a field and the goat is untethered, but there is a fence, at some point, if you know the nature of a goat, the goat's going to jump the fence and try and get into the fields beyond the fence, beyond the boundary. The goat broke the boundary, which was the fence, went into other fields and started eating food from other fields. So in the same way, if we are like goats and the fence is the law, and we have desired to go beyond the boundary of the law into the other fields and to start eating things that were not permitted because the farmer had put a boundary for us, then that would be like, what would we be? We'd be a law we would be lawless, wouldn't we? We'd be a law unto ourselves. We've decided to go beyond the boundary. And so I often say, in order to explain how that is possible, that the tether must be put around a goat, and so that the goat can't go beyond the boundary of the law, and that would be possible in the case of the Holy Spirit, which is reason. Christ also is reason, and reason would say to the sense, if it desired something that was beyond its means, that such thing will have an end. And here we start dealing with the question of mortality and immortality, because if we implement into this discussion the mortal and the immortal, we can see how the kingdom of heaven is very much a manifestation of the immortal, and the ability to reject things pertaining to mortality which would compromise our inheritance of things immortal. So if we look at this diagram once again, if the pearl is God and the 5 coins are sense and the field is the soul, we can give those coins in exchange for the field. We can get our souls back. We can get our souls back in exchange of, what is it? The superfluity of sense. The superfluity of sense separates us from God and destroys our soul, is the exegesis of the parable. So with superfluity of the eyesight, it would create an evil desire. It's like, I don't need quite so many things that most people think that they do need. I don't chase after the riches of this world. I don't need to, because I see that they're transient, they pertain to mortality, and they would take me beyond the realms of the kingdom of God. I wouldn't be making a journey into the kingdom of God. I would be making my home with the kingdom of this world if I was to go into the superfluity of the sight of the eyes. And we can see, like with the sense with touch. So we have sight and we have touch is another sense, and then we have things such as sexual immorality, because we know that God gave marriage, he gave the ability that we could go multiply and we could do those things lawfully. But going beyond, as I said, the boundaries of the law, that would be adulteries and fornications. And those things also would slay the soul, which in this parable is the field. And so if we were to spend that coin of touch to buy back our soul, it would mean we would have to stay within the boundaries of the law, and so preserving our soul. This is how the parable's working, okay? This is how in the parable where it says he sold all that he had. Both of those verses say the same things. He sold all he had, okay? What is it? What really is all that we have pertaining to these mortal garments? It's sense. Sense is all that we have. We are sharing in this experience. It's a shared experience through the senses. It's the Greeks call it empirical, and this is all we have. Like, you know, if we were blind, we are deprived of sight, and deaf, we're deprived of hearing, and this reduction brings forth all these kind of afflictions that the demons bring on people. You know, the demons afflict men and make them blind and deaf, and sicknesses. And why is that? It's because they go beyond the boundaries of the law. They go into sin, and the law to those demons after the flood was that they could not have dominion over men unless they had become sinners. Unless they'd become sinners. And so it's the excesses of sense and the lawlessness of sense that brings us into the captivity of demons and the slaying of the soul, which is the field in this parable. So we can buy this field if we limit and we're moderate with sense. We can exchange that for the field, and we can buy the treasure or the pearl, which is God, and God is love, and whoever loves God has God as his own, and he can become exceedingly rich. You can be so rich that you are immortal by this process. He that possesses the pearl possesses all things. So he that has God has everything. You don't need anything else if you have God. You have become immortal. And once the garment of your flesh is taken off, then you will become victorious in this contest. Because as we proceed, if you have claimed that treasure and you sold those coins, you bought that field, and you have that pearl, the devil will seek to deprive you of that by your own choice. He will stir up your senses in order to deprive you of the pearl, like in the temptation of Christ. He said, I'll give you all these things if you bow down and worship me. When he said all these things, it's all these things that pertain to the world, all these things that are sensual, that are to pass away. They're what's called ephemeral. So it's the ephemeral versus the eternal. And if we are rich in ephemeral things, we are poor in eternal things, and vice versa. If we are rich in eternal things, we are poor in ephemeral things. This is the equation, how it works. So when if I was to type in something, so I'm not doing these videos different verses, and kind of seeing if things kind of dovetail, if they fit together. What was that? So I'm going to pick this test. So my channel is basically an anti-Nicene Christian channel. So this is similar about the one seeking. Jesus said, he who seeks, let him not cease seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will be troubled, and if he is troubled, he will be amazed, and he will reign over the all. So this is a slightly different translation to the one I'm using. So we're ceasing. We don't seek ceasing until we find a treasure. We have to find God, and we're told in the gospel that it's within us. It's within our soul. Our soul contains God. It is the breath of God. When God created man, he breathed the breath of life into man. That's our soul. Okay, but sin will kill the soul. But God resides within that soul. So these things kind of start to make sense when you put it in this context. This is the core doctrine of Christianity. It says, if those who lead you say to you, behold, the kingdom is in heaven, then the birds of the heaven will be before you. If they say to you, it is in the sea, then the fish will be before you. But the kingdom is within you, and it is outside of you. When you know yourselves, then shall you be known, and you shall know that you are the sons of the living Father. But if you do not know yourselves, then you are in poverty, and you are poverty. So this links really well with this video about being rich and poor. So the first part of this is saying that the kingdom of heaven is not within a physical place. It isn't like you've got to ascend up into the heavens, or it isn't like you've got to descend down into the sea, but it's within you. It's, as we've explained, it's in your soul. And again, as it says, it's outside of you. I think he means by that the visible things contain invisible things, which is a mystery. So this visible kingdom contains the invisible kingdom, which is to come, the future kingdom. So when you know yourselves, then you shall be known, and you shall know you are the sons of the living Father. Okay, the sons of God. So in this text, it's saying to know yourself is to know that you are the sons of God. If you don't know that you're the sons of God, then you're in poverty. So this means you're poor. You're in poverty. Now that links with the Laodiceans in the book of Revelation, the epistle there, which said, because you say that you are increased in goods and you're rich and you have need of nothing, but you don't know that you're blind and filthy and naked and poor. And so the Laodiceans had foolishly taken on the riches of this world, which had deprived them of the riches of the next world, is what we're saying. So there's one in this text which I think is really good to look at as well. I'll just go through it. So I'm looking for the one that says, it's a bit like the one in the gospel where it says, the man who wanted to have as many goods as possible, he thought he was going to build bigger barns to store his goods. Okay, I may have gone past that. Sure, it was around tea. All right, let's look at this one, right? It's 22. It says, Jesus saw some infants at the breast. He said to his disciples, these little ones at the breast, are like those who enter the kingdom. They said to him, if we then be children, shall we enter the kingdom? Jesus said, when you make the two one, and when you make the inside as the outside, and the outside as the inside, and the upper side as the lower, and when you make the male and the female into a single one, that the male's not male and the female's not female, when you make eyes in place of an eye, and a hand in place of a hand, and a foot in place of a foot, an image in place of an image, then you should enter the kingdom. That is probably one of the most cryptic parables that Christ said. This one here, though, when you make the two one, and when you make the inside as the outside and the outside as the inside, if we look at the body and the soul, the early Christians were they had the knowledge that they would, because Christ is called a physician, the doctor, and when people would go to the church, they would come to what were called the therapeutes in the Greek, because they were said to have the therapy, the cures, the healings for the soul. And so the first people that people who wanted to go and become a Christian, they would come across these people. They were the ones who were having the sinners and they would say, we need to cure your soul. And so some people thought that the early Christians were called the therapeutes, like Eusebius was saying that he reckoned that there was people in Egypt called the therapeutes, but that is actually a division of the church. There was 3 divisions, and the first one you would come across would be these people. And so making the two one is the body and the soul, because if the body is sinning, or if the body is in sin and the soul has been killed, the inside does not resemble the outside. It's divided. The body's divided against itself, because the souls come from God, but the flesh is doing the things of the devil. And so there needs to be a unity between the body and the soul to God. And we need to understand the things that separate men from God. And this is why with the false Christs and the false theologians, what they're always looking to do is to bring you into the captivity of sin, one way or another. Okay, I can't find that one. Let's move on to another one. This is going to have to load it. So this is with sense impossible. I think it's somebody. Okay, so it's here. Okay, I'll read this, and we're going to link it into the parable of the treasure in the field, which is to do with exchanging cents for the soul. So I'll read this, then we'll talk about it again. The watchman saw in the arena of games 5 lions who struck fear into all from battle and were taken to the cages by the man-eaters. However, the man-eaters escaped through a gate left open by the keepers of the arena and ran into the streets of the city. The man-eaters then commenced a bloody rampage, slaying everyone in their path. Into the wall, they scaled it and fled the city and journeyed across a wasteland. They arrived at a fertile vineyard, wherein was a winepress with a strong virgin standing upon it. The man-eaters, being hungered, said, O strong virgin, we shall now devour you, as no man has been able to halt our tenacious acquisition of the visible, nor have they been able to stop our mouths devouring all that we desire. The virgin replied, O man-eaters, your desire of things visible assimilates you into the things visible. Thus, there being an end of those things, your end shall come, for that desire brings an end. The man-eaters rushed at him, but the ground gave way underneath them, and they fell into a trench. Spikes impaled them at the bottom of the pit, which thrust through their hearts, insomuch that their inward parts were exposed and seen. The man-eaters cried out, Alas, we have died the death, and are rewarded with our own way. The virgin, surveying the insides of the man-eaters, said, I will pour wine into your wounds and lift you out of the trench. Then you shall labour in my vineyard, gathering the clusters of the vine. So the virgin brought the man-eaters into the vineyard and gave them baskets. They gathered the clusters to make ready the wine for the banquet. Okay, so you'll want to know the explanation of the man-eaters. Is it the man-eaters and the strong virgin? The 5 man-eaters and the virgin of the winepress. The mystery of the man-eaters is this. The 5 man-eaters signify sense, being 5-fold. Their destructive rampage was the desire of things present and visible, which is brutish to the man who has reason. Reason was shown as the strong virgin, and the vineyard he kept was the church. The clusters are the works of the holy, and the winepress represents the rewards of that labour. The making of wine being the spiritual drink that brings life, which is promised now and in the future banquet. The man-eaters falling into the spiked traps showed the end of sense without reason, which was death. When the spikes penetrated their hearts, the word of God reproved their deeds as foolish. Their inward parts being exposed showed the evil which was hidden within them exposed. Reason then provided healing by the wine and gave them new work by which they could live. So, in a sense, what these parables do is they kind of provide us with a physical guide to metaphysical teachings. If we want to implement things talking about sense and reason, I think that the parables, particularly some of the earlier ones which are not explained, parables being very vague, they need somebody to draw them out. There has to be somebody who's able to interpret them. And often is the case with a lot of the teachings of people in churches, etc. They won't generally talk about the parables, or talking. They won't talk in terms of parables. That's for sure. there's any more on here. So basically, I wrote this book of parables. I haven't read it for a while. I was just reading through just earlier before I came on. I've just seen if there's more interesting ones I might read out. If none of them are in context of the video, I won't read them. No. Okay, cool. So that's pretty much it for this live stream. If anyone has any comments, and I'll back.